What is the most ridiculous college major you've ever heard of? An old friend has a bachelor's degree in outdoor activities. He was never able to explain exactly what that meant, though. When I was there, my college had one of the top parks recreation and tourism management (PRTM) programs in the country. It had the nickname, Party Right Through May. It was extremely popular with student athletes, especially football players. There's always a demand for graduates too. It seems like one of those fields where you shouldn't need a college degree to do the work, but you need one to get in the door. Came here totally prepared to see my degree, outdoor recreation, listed. This sounds like basically the same thing. Our studies revolved around land management agencies, facility design management for outdoor activities or sports, adventure education, experiential education, and a handful of models pertaining to design and feedback loops. Truly, I'm surprised I remember that much. It does fall into the same college as health and human sciences. I actually started as a kinesiology major. At MIT, you can be certified in being a pirate if you complete the courses of pistol, archery, sailing, and fencing. And my college of choice is now MIT. Their intercollegiate sports are the engineers. So pirate engineer. Coolest pirate subtype besides vampire, and just above space pirate. I'm starting to think that MIT majors are just tabletop RPG builds. If I remember correctly, like 20 years ago, some college in Indiana offered a major in world domination. You can only get a job as a henchman with a bullshit. You need a full PhD to be an evil mastermind. I didn't spend 6 years in evil medical school to be called Mr. Evil. PhD in general studies. Is that actually a thing? I have a friend with this degree. The thing about it is, colleges usually offer this if you've changed up your degree too many times, and it's difficult to grab a degree in something specific. My friend was in college for 5 years, and changed majors 3 times. If he wanted a full degree in something, he would have had to do another 2 to 3 years. So they offered him a general studies degree in its place so he can graduate. This makes sense for an undergrad, but I don't see how you could get so far as a PhD and still be doing general studies. Maybe he doubled down and did the same thing while getting his PhD. Puppetry. You can become a doctor of puppetry at UConn. Doctorates are often heavily based in theory, so a PhD in puppetry likely has less to do with being really good at puppets and is more akin to being an anthropologist with a specialty in understanding historical and cultural practices through the view of their puppets. There's this puppet on YouTube who teaches history. I'm pretty sure he has a doctorate. Oh man, they used to have a degree in floral arrangement. An old friend majored in post-medieval Russian music, which is a field that can only lead back into academia. Gets contacted by the CIA to pose as part of the Moscow Symphony Orchestra so he can get in close to Putin. You can major in whatever you want and become a lawyer in the US. Seriously, nothing you studied in undergrad will matter except reading and writing, and your GPA. So go forth, post-medieval Russian musicians. A lawyer who was a classics major and loved it, while everyone else fell for the poli-sci trap thinking it'd give them a leg up. Suckers. Okay, edit for full disclosure. I actually double majored, other major being French, not a native speaker. I thought I'd either be an archaeologist or a medieval French manuscript specialist analyst person. To be honest, wasn't even sure if that was a real job, but in my head it was. Pretty on par with post-medieval Russian music, but here we are, made it work. Bonus point, one time I actually cited a French medieval manuscript in a footnote in a winning legal brief. You never know when your weird knowledge will be needed. Cherish it. He could also be a history or music teacher. You can major in anything and become a teacher as long as you pass the subject matter competency tests. Wasn't there a school that ended up doing a sports degree? Guess if you wanted to start a league or team it would be nice, but kids just joining to get good is not good, lol. My nephew at UConn is majoring in esports. He claims it is all about managing teams, marketing them, and setting up opportunities. He can really sell it, but I'm still not sure I believe him. You weren't kidding. I was surprised to see how many Google results came back for bachelor's degrees in esports or esports management. My university had an interdisciplinary studies department that served mainly to get super-duper seniors graduated. They would cobble together the random credits people got because they changed majors every semester into a degree. You get some wild majors like a BA in culinary traditions and music in the former British Empire. I have a friend who ended up graduating like this. He has a degree in French business because he had a ton of French language credits and business school credits, but not enough to graduate with either as a stand-alone degree. Any classes about business in France? Or just French plus business equals French business? I don't think so. His first language is Spanish and French was his third. He took a class on French cinema, which was a 4,000, but he was officially in the business school. I do think to get him out the door he had to take an international business course, but I don't think it was specific to France. Now he's a web developer. That new influencer degree in Ireland. My generation keeps disappointing me. A big part of being an influencer is being attractive. That's not required, but you have to be talented at something and very likable if you don't have the looks. I don't know how a school would go about teaching that. North Carolina State made a degree for a basketball player in university studies. That's a pretty common starter major in the ACC. You then switch to a legit major by junior year. I remember a basketball player who majored in French. I was impressed. Until I realized he was a foreign student from a French-speaking country. I signed up for ESL when I was in high school. My mom asked me why. I said, "Foreign language credit." She said, "You can't take English as a second language when English is the only fucking language you speak." Not sure if still available, but in Japan you could get a degree in making tea. Admittedly, the whole traditional process is very much like a dance or performance rather than just boiling the kettle and using a tea bag, but when I first heard of it I was like, what a fuck, kids these days. Dad, how did you fail your final in tea making? Me brewed coffee. Peace studies. She works part-time in a coffee shop. For the last 8 years. I knew a guy who did peace studies. He was the head of food and beverage at what he described as the second most prestigious Jewish boarding school in Beverly Hills. I think he owns a pizza shop in San Bernardino now. I minored in peace studies. I attended a prestigious university with an extremely selective international affairs department, and peace studies was a backdoor into lectures taught by former politicians, journalists, veterans, and ambassadors. I learned so much about the world, and I regret nothing. Golf. It was made so the vice-chancellor could buy a private golf course for the university, so he could play on it. I believe it had 5 enrollments ever, and one was a joke that didn't show up or pay. It got cancelled the first year, but he got to enjoy his own personal golf course for some years after. Should have just made a turf sciences program. I met a guy from Texas A&M who said all the jocks and meatheads majored in poultry science. Graduated from A&M. Famed NFL linebacker Von Miller has a degree in poultry science. Starting salary for poultry science majors is well into the 6 figures. No, Von's salary is not part of that calculation. Unfortunately, the reason they are getting paid so much is to work insane hours at poultry growing operations and having to deal with the slaughter and waste. Von Miller also runs a chicken farm, so in his case it's not a degree he got just because he had to pick one to play football. He's actually quite serious about it. Yep. Even has a chicken tattoo. Did some prereqs at a school that offered storytelling as a degree. Also had a bluegrass major. I actually think they're both really interesting fields, and I appreciate Appalachian culture being preserved that way. Sadly, surviving late-stage capitalism doesn't leave a lot of people time to study things because of passion. It's all about the grind. I think it was another Reddit post somewhere else, but one guy knew another guy who had majored in Egyptology, where the only way to make money was to get a master's in Egyptology and teach Egyptology, a literal pyramid scheme. P.I. Bomwitz got an BA from UC Berkeley in magic. At a graduation at the University of Redlands, they have a degree whereby you basically take the classes you want and call it what you want. The degree conferred was, I kid you not, still trying to figure out who I am. There are other private colleges where you can create your own major. They also don't call it anything stupid so you can put it on a resume. Knew a guy that did it, and he took a bunch of very strategic, well-thought-out classes, basically a version of international relations linguistics, and got a job at the UN. Not the worst idea if you have a good game plan. My mother's best friend had a PhD in genocide studies. That's not really ridiculous, but she was the happiest, most chipper person I had ever met, and I was always thinking, is she taking something to be like this? Or is she just a little crazy? Because I would be depressed. In my experience, anyone who can dedicate serious time to studying or dealing with heavy subjects like genocide is precisely the kind of person who knows how to avoid dwelling on negative thoughts and feelings. Somebody got a degree from just studying the Beatles. They probably studied 8 days a week. My college briefly had a major in Nordic lesbianism. Why on earth has nobody mentioned clown colleges? As in, actual colleges where they teach people how to be professional clowns. Master's degree in magic and occult science from the University of Exeter in the UK. No idea what the fuck they're playing at. What is the most ridiculous college major you've ever heard of? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.